and they figure out what they want to do with whatever they have left when they die. So I had a long-standing client. He was a professor of history. He never married, therefore never had children. He had accumulated through inheritances and just being very frugal a lot of money. Let's just say something close to $5 million, and this was some years ago. And we sat down to do his estate planning. He didn't even have a will at this point. And he, to me, caring about the community, thinking that he had no real family to take care of with his resources, figured this is a great opportunity to suggest charitable giving. Wouldn't it be wonderful for him to leave a legacy for the community or for whatever he believed in? So we go through the estate planning. We already knew what his resources were. We started talking about what he wanted to do, and he's grasping for a distant nephew and niece, and he's really struggling with what to do with it. And I said, John, let's call him, have you ever thought about leaving some money? I knew he was a little bit charitably minded. He gave money on an annual basis. And I said, have you thought about leaving a portion of it to charitable organizations? He said, wow, no, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. And so time travels by a little bit. I think we ended the session on that. He was going to go home and think about that. Well, we set our next meeting and we got back together, and he said, yeah, I think it's going to be my alma mater, University of Chicago. Figuring, really? And I said, okay, well, is there an amount or a portion of your estate? Reminded him of how much he was worth, because he had no clue really how much he was worth. And he finally said, yeah, I've been thinking about it really long and hard. I'm going to leave him $5,000. So as much as financial advisors try to help the cause, we don't always succeed. Yeah, oh my. That's what I said to him. And in fact, at the end of the day, I didn't make much more progress beyond that. Okay, so hopefully, this perspective of working with clients on a daily basis is going to be a little bit, give you a little different perspective today versus what Pam or what Mr. Temple provided. And I'm just going to give you an overview of charitable techniques from simple, and I emphasize simple, or the simplest, think of this as a progression from simple to more complex. And, oops, there we go. So, and we're going to divide it into two categories, basically, lifetime gifts versus estate plan gifts. I'm going to follow a progression of simplest to most complex, basically. And let me emphasize, there is no substitute for donor intent, so I can talk about taxes and all the benefits and tax advantage techniques here, but unless there is donor intent, obviously, everything can fail. And I'm going to try not to give you a heavy dose of taxation today, but I hope to help you a little bit with your understanding of how taxes play into charitable giving. So let's begin with lifetime techniques, and of course the very first thing, the simplest thing, I say everybody loves cash. Charitable organizations, donors like to give cash too because it's simple. On the other hand, donors sometimes hate to part with their cash. So sometimes that's a big limitation, but it is ultimately simple, easy, and has an immediate impact. I think you all understand that. go to the next level of complexity, so to speak, and that is to talk about gifts of appreciated property. And this can include many different things. I've just listed a few here: stock, real estate, art, mineral interests, like, well, I see a head shake, mineral interests, wow. And royalties. In this town, royalties are oftentimes, professors who publish and have a stream of income from royalties. That's not uncommon in this town. But any of these things that have, over the years, particularly those that have appreciated over the years, are good candidates for lifetime gifts. And one of the benefits, I think, is that it becomes easier for the donor to, I say, part with their resources, and it allows perhaps for them to be more generous as opposed to giving outright cash. Now we get a little bit of taxation. I hope many of you know already that when cash is given, there is a limitation of how much can be deducted on the tax return at the end of the year, and that's when cash is given, that's 50% of the adjusted gross income. So if a person makes $100,000, they can't give more than $50,000 in that year and have it be deductible. You also may know, however, and the good news is that even though they don't use all that deduction that year, they can carry it forward for up to 5 years. So it's generally not a big limitation to get a big gift that can't be deductible. So let's walk through a simple example. I work in the world of stocks and bonds, so I'm a little biased here. Stock gifts, I think, are one of the most underutilized things that I see. I am constantly preaching to my clients, and hopefully I've done a good job for them so they have appreciated stocks, but I'm constantly preaching the benefits of giving appreciated assets in general, but stock in particular. So let's just walk through a simple example of 1,000 shares of ABC. It could be any stock out there that this particular example illustrates was purchased. I'm sorry, it's now valued at, I can't see that far, $50 a share. So what's it worth? $50,000, right? 1,000 shares times $50 a share. That person, whoever it was, and this is not, I emphasize again, this is not uncommon, they purchased it or inherited it or somehow acquired it many years ago, or maybe not even that many years ago, but maybe it was a company that was bought out all of a sudden, and they only paid $5 a share. So using the example that if they sold that stock, they would have a capital gain of $45,000, the difference between what they paid for it and the market value. And at a rate of somewhere between 15 and 25%, the typical range for capital gains tax, they'd be paying $6,700 to $11,250 in tax. So their $50,000 becomes significantly less. But let's illustrate a different scenario where instead they give the stock to a charitable organization, and they, first of all, avoid the capital gain. They are limited to 30% of adjusted gross income in giving that appreciated property. So the $50,000 of stock, depending on their income, it may take them multiple years to use up that tax benefit, but ultimately it's in most cases they would be able to use it up over the 5-year period of time. For those of you who do this, I strongly encourage my clients. I have a lot of clients who give stock, and I find in working with nonprofit organizations in town I want to emphasize this a little because I find that this is